Cool.
Hey guys, Pravesh Khanna here from itninja.com.au. I'm a senior principal engineer at Dell EMC, working in enterprise space, helping our customers realize the full potential of their investment within enterprise technology products. Along with me is Richard Houghton, a fellow Dell EMC member and a blogger. Richard, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hey everyone, Richard Houghton here. As Pravesh mentioned, working in at Dell EMC, I'm a systems management and compute specialist based here in Melbourne, Australia, and also hanging out on Twitter and the blog universe as Strategical IT.
Richard, if you're working in a large university environment, a college or a hospital or a financial institution, where you have a majority of your workforce now working from home, so you as an IT engineer have that added extra pressure on top of you where you have to keep your shop running and support all these extra people working from home. So how do you expand your infrastructure, but how do you manage it? That's the biggest challenge in this day and age, in my opinion, as well.
Yeah, mate. Like, I mean, right now I'm literally sitting at home doing this with you. And I think that's sort of, that new norm that everyone's sort of talking about now. So adapting to that and understanding how we deal with that, a few tools there. And yes, we have our traditional iDRAC, which is, the out-of-band management device that we have built into the Dell EMC PowerEdge servers. Yep. But I guess as part of that, iDRAC is just sort of one small tool in the arsenal that I guess we bring to bear there as part of a bigger OpenManage systems environment in general. So I think as part of that environment, we've got, OpenManage Enterprise, and I guess as Dell, as industry, we love acronyms. So, for us, that's OME. Yeah, I know, it's crazy.
So before we look into the one-to-many solutions that you've mentioned here, let's look at what are the options available as one-to-one management.
One-to-one.
So as in like, I'll chip in some from my end, and then you can obviously add to that list. So if I'm working in a small shop or a medium-sized shop, I have, up to 10, 50, 30, 40, 50 servers to manage in my environment. I would usually have like an out-of-band management environment. So your iDRACs, or if you're a non-Dell shop, then you would be having something like an ILO as an example to manage that environment. And then obviously on the OS side of things, the operating system side of things, you would be having your remote desktop connections or SSH. That would give you that one-to-one management capability. So you can easily go and log on to each of those servers and restart them or patch them or do whatever you need to do on a daily basis. And sure, you will have your, a repository of script either on a network share, or if you're, advanced enough to have your own GitHub repository within your environment, where you would host all your shell scripts and PowerShell scripts and Python scripts if you are into them these days.
And Excel spreadsheets.
And and SQL servers and the rest of it, all the extra stuff that goes into managing that.
Yep.
You just hit a very good point on just now. It is really hard to manage. It really hard. It's once you grow beyond a certain size, maintaining those scripts and keeping them up to date and making sure your servers, your infrastructure is confined to that standard baseline, that is a big challenge.
Yeah.
And especially if you're stuck at home, you can't be there to compare that little difference in the BIOS setting from one server to the other and without logging on to each of them. How do you?
And that's it, right? I mean, we have always been able to do this stuff via iDRAC or ILO, log on to a server, check a BIOS setting, or do a firmware update. And, traditionally even firmware, even pre-COVID, a firmware updates a lot of customers, and therefore a lot of, IT admins don't do firmware updates. And they don't do it for a semi-good reason. It's just really painful. Some considered high risk, you got to bounce the server. Is it going to work? All that kind of stuff. But I think given recent security threats, people are now having to take a different stance with something as simple as updating firmware across a fleet. I mean, I walked into a customer here in Melbourne who had a fleet of servers whose average was 5 years. The oldest server that we had running in there was 7 years. And the BIOS on the server was from 7 years ago. It was that if it ain't broke, don't fix it mentality.
Yep.
But now, in this day and age, that was not a security stance that they were going to be able to maintain moving. They were explicitly being told by the business,
yep,
we want reports, we want an understanding of where we are. They had been hit, not actually by anything that took advantage of any of those vulnerabilities at a hardware layer. They were attacked higher up with the sort of crypto locker type thing, but it made the organization acutely aware. It's not just other people that can suffer these problems. Yeah. So yeah, that one-to-one management has been there, and it is just painful. Doing it one at a time, reboot a server. It can take 2 to 10 minutes for a server to reboot, depending on how much memory and potentially if you're doing the firmware update in there, how much work is being done with that firmware update. Times by number of servers. Man, I get another reason why it was always sort of, let's not worry too much.
And interesting point that you touched up, because I have worked in a lot of financial services and government sectors before. And now what we're seeing is the industry, actually, the regulators behind these kind of industry, they are mandating the companies to actually perform not only operating system updates, but hardware, the firmware updates, especially with things like Spectre and Meltdown, since they surface, they are mandating those things. So if you're not doing your firmware updates, if you're not applying those updates on a regular basis, you actually breach of that compliance, and you could have their consequences just because not doing something.
More than that, mate, the CEO and the board can have consequences.
and that's right. Yes.
And that's to be fair to our IT colleagues is part of what's driving this as well, right? That actually, to be fair to them as well, people are starting to get some funding to enable this stuff to happen now. Whereas previously, it might have been a bit harder for an IT shop to get some of the funding that they needed to do this. And that funding isn't always necessarily going, we need lots of money to achieve this stuff, because particularly with the tool sets that we'll get to talking about, for most of our customers, they've probably already got the rights to use this stuff. They effectively probably already own the licenses and don't even realize.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess when I was talking about that funding, it's also just about an acknowledgement that stuff needs to happen. Therefore, time is being set aside for them to be able to achieve these sometimes quite mundane, boring, but very important management tasks on hardware.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep. So obviously, then we're touching into that one-to-many management capabilities, and something you touched upon before was OpenManage. So I know that there are multiple products in the OpenManage portfolio that we as a company in Dell EMC provide. So let's pick up one of them is like OpenManage Enterprise.
Yeah.
So you obviously are the absolute expert when it comes to OpenManage Enterprise. If you can just shed some light and just enlighten us on why, if I'm a medium-sized company or a large-sized company, why would I pick up something like OpenManage Enterprise?
Right. Okay. Well, first of all, I'm definitely not the absolute expert. I know there are definitely some product group guys and developers in our team that, but I'm lucky in that my role at Dell does enable me to focus on this and talk to a lot of customers about what they're doing in this space. So yeah, OpenManage Enterprise or OME, as I called it before, is at the heart of our management tool sets. It is, as you called it, it is effectively our tool set for doing that one-to-many type automation and workflow against Power Edge servers. Mm-hmm. So I guess where it really starts to drive those efficiencies is exactly that one-to-many thing, being able to group together a bunch of tasks into a workflow and then have those completed against those Power servers. It still utilizes the iDRAC. So all this work that we're talking about happens out of band. It leverages the iDRAC on these Power servers. But now admins aren't having to log on to each damn server individually and do the work. OpenManage Enterprise or maybe one of the complementary products within the OpenManage portfolio will drive that work and push the workflow through. So you can kick it off, and then as an admin, you just, I would suggest typically you want to keep an eye on what's going on, but it doesn't mean that you just have to sit there and drudge your way through every single step.
Yep. And can I, so obviously this sounds like a more of a GUI tool that I can log on to and
right, of course, mate. Yes. I've jumped straight into expecting the whole world to know what OME is. So OME from a customer point of view is delivered as a virtual appliance. So we support, I think we basically support all the really common hypervisors. So obviously the VMware vSphere, ESXi, Hyper-V, KVM. So we've got most of the market covered from a virtual appliance point of view. And then, yes, mate, the typical interface that most of our customers use is the GUI, HTML5, so none of that Java stuff. We don't have to worry about any of that funny bits and pieces. If you've got a modern browser, then you'll have a nice experience. There is also the API, and I guess for customers that are sort of higher in that maturity space around systems management, then they can start leveraging that API. And the thing I say about the API on OpenManage Enterprise is what I call a first-class citizen. So effectively, everything you can do via the GUI, you can also do via API. So like I said, as customers get more mature, and when I say mature, I mean it's mature in that sort of DevOps space, and they're starting to leverage third-party tools, Ansibles and Chefs and Puppets and stuff like that, or even just writing straight up the guts Python scripts to do stuff against Power servers, then that's fully supported by.
That's very good. But let's put a bit of challenge there for you then. To make things hard. So I love what you're saying about OpenManage Enterprise, but I'm a VMware shop. I do not want to go and learn another tool set just to manage hardware. I don't want to waste time in that. What do you have for me?
So I guess our two most sort of popular integrations, as we call them, within OME will be one. Here we go. This is like acronym bingo here. OMIVV.
I'm ready.
Yeah.
So say that again.
So, OMIVV. So that's the OpenManage integration for VMware vCenter. And we have the equally snappy named integration for the Microsoft world and System Center and also Windows Admin. Now, what that enables our customers to do is to use those familiar tools. So if you're a VMware shop, as you were just saying, right? So basically, most of your life revolves around vCenter. Cool. So now we have OMIVV. It's a snap-in, I'll call it that, within vCenter. Effectively, you get an extra tab. You also get some extra options from a sort of right mouse click menu type scenario. And now all that hardware management stuff we can drive out of vCenter. And also in particular with those integrations, because we now have, I guess, a bit more contextual awareness around what the servers are doing, it brings more smarts to OME. So my example there is firmware updates.
Yep.
Firmware updates on a VMware cluster with OMIVV are as simple as right mouse clicking and going, update the firmware on the cluster. Okay, I will admit there's a little bit of pre-work there and that you need to have the right firmware catalog and everything set up. Boom, now I need to talk about another product called DRM, or the Dell Repository Manager. But once you've done that little bit of work, you can quite literally just kick this wizard off. It will, it'll check the amount of resources across the entire cluster and make sure there's enough spare resources that we can put a host in maintenance mode, then put the first host in maintenance mode. wait for workload to come off that. So DRS is obviously a requirement for that scenario. Cool, now we're in maintenance mode. It'll go through, it'll do all the firmware updates that you've scheduled. It'll then bring the host back up, pull it out of maintenance mode, wait for workload to come back, and then do the second host. So there's nothing for an admin to do. They've literally just right mouse click, update, schedule it. So you can schedule when you want that to happen or kick it off straight away if you really want. But then at that point, automate it the whole way through end to end from starting through to all done, entire cluster now up to date. And then as part of OME or OMIVV, now we're in a known good state. We can now use that to produce compliance reports. So if we have any, what we call an OpenManage configuration drift, i.e. someone changes a BIOS setting or maybe a new server gets installed and it's installed after you've done that firmware update, but it's on different versions and you want everything to be on the same version, then admins get alerts on that. So they're not having to individually go and look for these problems. They're proactively announced.
This is great.
Yeah.
So literally what you're saying, I can actually, if I'm an IT admin, I can breathe easy and really have that, stress-free management of my infrastructure.
Yeah. And particularly the compliance reporting thing, right? Like it's just that ability to turn around to the business and go, yep, we're up to date. Ran the report on Monday. A Wednesday board meeting? Oh, it's on Wednesday? Great. I'll run a report on Wednesday morning just before the board meeting and give it to you if that's what you want, if that's what's required. And so, yeah, it does make life really that easy.
Yeah, so very good point that you've touched upon because especially in the sectors that I've mentioned before, the financial services, the government, where the auditors would come in once a year, twice a year kind of thing, and they actually want to see the proof that yes, you have been patching, yes, it's all up to date, and show me the version numbers. So yes, for that purposes, looks like godsend toolset. Yeah.
Super easy, right? And you don't need to be some sort of SQL god to create these reports either. Like I said, for reporting, whilst you can drive a lot of that via a script, for me personally, I think the reporting is just easier done via the GUI. Maybe once you've got a report template set up, you might kick the report off via a script, but the initial setup of a report, I just set that up out of the GUI. It's literal drag and drop of fields. This is what I want in my report. I want the report run against, maybe you run it against absolutely everything in your data center. Maybe you only care about running it against the servers that are running an Oracle workload or against your VMware environment. And so you can group stuff together within OpenManage Enterprise to make all that easy and then generate those reports.
Awesome. That sounds like the OpenManage portfolio is that it's unobstructive in nature where it is there when you need it, but you don't have to spend your day managing infrastructure, just logging onto it all the time.
Yes. And I guess it's another thing that I sort of joke about with customers when we're talking to them about management, right? No one likes systems management. I don't think I've met an admin who's gone, oh man, I wake up every Monday and I'm ripping into work because I just love getting into my management tool set. No. And look, I'm not even going to claim that ours is the panacea of awesomeness. Again, I joke with customers and go, look, our admin set really sucks, but not as bad as some others because no one likes these tools. There's no point in pretending that they're going to solve every goddamn problem that you've got and, that they're perfect. They're not. But what we do have is some tools that really do help add value to those really sort of, like I said at the beginning, they're not tasks that people are really doing that much now, but they should be a lot more common. So automating those tasks, making them just that little bit easier for IT teams to digest, get it done, and then focus on doing other stuff. The business likes us to talk about focusing on enabling people to, provide more value to the business, whatever that means sometimes, I don't know, but it's about people coming to work and not being bogged down with, oh man, I've really
got to patch 50 servers today.
I've got to do that report because I know the auditors are coming in and I've got to log in and check the firmware across 10 servers. Okay, 50 servers, painful. If you're 100 server shop, oh my God, just shoot me now. But now in an OpenManage environment, easy, no problems at all. Set it up, go down the road to the cafe. I live in Melbourne, and have a coffee. Come back, report done. Thanks. Awesome.
Oh,
so
sounds very good. One question for you then. If I'm a customer, if I'm a person out in the field, how do I make sure I get enough information about this thing? What is my next step forward?
I've actually written a blog post on my blog around how to find the documentation. Yeah, I know. It's semi-sad that I have to do that, but so I'll say the blog for the benefit of the people that listen to this on the podcast. It's strategical IT, and it's a made up word. So strategicalit.blog. If you head there, there's a blog post there that talks about, it's pinned on the homepage there on how to find documentation for the OpenManage portfolio. So that's how you get to the documentation. To download the products, then you can actually follow that doco and go through those steps, but you will need a service tag from one of your powered servers to download it.
So Richard, that was really good information on OpenManage portfolio. I'm sure our customers would benefit from this conversation that we had. I've certainly learned a lot.
We should do it again, mate.
We're definitely going to do it. So the aim is to do it at least once a fortnight. And based on your feedback, the viewers, let us know if you want to talk about more interesting technical stuff within the enterprise IT space in future video podcasts. We're happy to take those submission on board. And please do subscribe and share this with your friends and colleagues, so we have more talent pool knowing about this stuff that we're talking about here. Richard, thank you so much for today's time.
That was awesome, mate.
Yep, and we shall talk again very soon.
See you later.
Bye for now.